Thank you.
So the next speaker is going to introduce some of the freewares that can be used for deep sky imaging processing or landscape as well.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nicola. I'm going to talk about freeware image processing. The reason why I decided to talk about this topic was that astronomy, in particular astrophotography, is a very expensive hobby. And so, what if we try to save some euros or any currency you want to mention in order to exploit to purchase our latest telephoto lens or the latest corrector of our fast Newtonian. So this is why I decided to talk about this. Basically, we would like to talk about this. I would like to make some, let's say, further talk regarding freeware and open source, the difference between these two. A kind of recall about the processing phases we are going to talk about during the image processing. The list of the software for image processing which I considered for this kind of presentation, and a kind of example of workflow using totally free software from the calibration down to the final image editing. And then, of course, I'm open to any question you have. So let's start to talk about the definition of freeware. Freeware is a software that you don't pay for. You don't know the source code, you just get the executable. And sometimes it happens that the software can be freeware only as a portion of the total software itself. Sometimes it happens that you get a small set of features for free, and then you need to pay a small fee for getting the full program. Or you can have it free for completely for all the feature itself. Sometimes the distinction between a small set of feature and a large set of feature, of the complete set of feature, is that depending on who you are, if you are a private or an academic person using the software, perhaps you have a special license that you can use all of the features. If you are a commercial person, like for instance someone that sells astrophotos, for instance, then of course you have a reduced set amount unless you're going to pay the fee, the license fee. The open source is entirely different. You've got, as before, as for the freeware, the software for free, but you can get much more. If you are a programmer or a curious or you want to improve, you can actually be part of the community that developed the program and actually do what you need. For instance, let's say if you have a freeware or sorry, an open source program and there is not such filter like I just make an example. This is a very simple, but obviously almost editing software it has. But for instance, there is no minimum filter, which is sometimes used for reduction of the star size. And you are working with an open source software, then you can participate and volunteer, perhaps not just coding because maybe you don't have the skills, but perhaps testing the filter that someone else has written and contributing in any case to the development of the software itself. So you don't just get the software to use, but you can also contribute yourself to the cause. I just briefly go through the phases of image processing because when you work with freeware, of course, and the open source, you don't get in one single program most of the times what you need. But you get bits and pieces, sometimes here and there. So what you need at first is to understand which are the phases of image processing. So at first we've got the calibration, and the activities, of course, is taking our raw frames, calibrating against all the kind of thermal noise, electronic noise, dust, scratches, uneven field illumination, and so on. The alignment, of course, is the next phase. You register the images all together in order for going to the next phase, which is the stacking. And in the stacking phase, you actually build one over the other the calibrated frames in order to reduce the signal-to-noise ratio. After that, we can move straight away to the contrast enhancement phase. At this point, we are leaving the linear stage of our images and going to the non-linear stages. There are plenty of algorithms and curving, manual curving, function, asymmetrical function, whatever you want. There are many algorithms that can help you in the contrast enhancements. And then there is the final editing, which is the only one phase that is common to any digital phase of a photo, even the normal photos, daylight photos, which is the photo editing, when you want to remove some imperfections of your image that you couldn't eliminate with the previous phases. Now you can, or final retouches to the color balance to your liking, for instance. And this is the phase, of course, this is the final phase where you are going to work with that. So let's consider the software that I found useful. Of course, probably, well, I hope it's complete, but there might be some software that I don't know and I don't mention about it. But this is the software that I found useful during my image processing. The first one I want to talk about is Iris. Iris has been around since many years from now. It's been made by a French guy, which is Christian Will, and it's very complete software. Mainly for complete, I mean that it doesn't have features only for image processing, for pretty images, but also for astrometric or photometric fields. On the other side, this kind of the user interface of Iris, it's very Spartan, if you pass me this term, in terms that most of the commands of Iris have not been available through the user interface, but you need to use the command window in order to execute those commands. And that makes Iris sometimes very difficult for a person that is used to the typical user interface that the Windows products normally provide. Another one is Deep Sky Stacker, by another French guy, Luc Couffier. Deep Sky Stacker is mainly for software, for image calibration and stacking. Doesn't have any contrast enhancement or editing phase. I mention it because most of the times I've seen many people starting for the first time with astrophotography. Many people in the forums suggested this program as a starting point because the user interface is relatively simple and you can, let's say, produce decent results with it. I wouldn't say perfect, but definitely decent results as a starter. Regim is another interesting software. Actually, I discovered Regim just 1 month ago, when I already completed the first printing of this presentation. Then I had to change again the presentation, and it's a very interesting plain user interface, very clean. It's very good in image registration. It has very few, let's say, features for concerning the contrast enhancement, but it has a nice feature regarding, for instance, the BV calibration, star calibration, in order to have a better balanced color images, and the astrometric reduction as well. Well, Teli We had a very interesting presentation this morning by Frank Sackenheim about tele, so I won't add very much about it. Very complicated, professional astronomy oriented, but very complete as far as calibration, precise software calibration and stacking. There are so many parameters, you shouldn't be much afraid about that because there is a nice community that can help you in solving the issues you have with tele. Let's talk about Fit's work as well. Very interesting program. Nice and clean user interface. Good at calibration and deconvolution. It has feature of deconvolution as well. And as far as contrast enhancement, that is not one of the best programs, but it's good for the first phases of the image processing. PixelSight Lite Edition. I mentioned about it, despite this program can't be downloaded anymore from the Play This Astrophoto website. I mentioned it because some of us at least, still have the file, the executable file, so of course they are entitled to use it. The kind of license of PixelSight is very weird at the moment because it's a freeware, but the license forbids anyone to put it in a public server. So you're not allowed to put it in your website, for instance, for everyone to download it. But if you ask me in friendship to send it by email, it's perfectly legal. It has 1/20th of the features of the PixelSight standard, which is the commercial version. But it's still very interesting because it has very nice noise reduction feature and a very nice stretching feature. But most of all, it can work with layer masks, so you can actually work precisely, exactly where you want it, the way you want it. Let's go to PicTools. PicTools is the best program of the world, because I made it, of course. And well, I thought about PicTools just as a tool, actually. I needed something that made as a glue between Iris software and the photo editing and contrasting software. One of the, let's say, lacking of the Iris tools is that it's working at 16-bit per color channel with a relative integer. So it's going from minus 32,000 something to plus 32,000 something. And this is a little bit weird because most of the standard of the TIFF files or also, I think also Fit's files are positive integer or real integer. So I needed something to translate the .pic files from Iris down to something that could read it and then stretch the image and then editing the image itself. So from a beginning, it was only a translator, a file converter. But then I wanted to add some more features. I started to put an hyperbolic Arcosin stretch at 32-bit per color channel and the stacking feature of 32-bit per color channel. And the last feature I inserted was a removal of the excess green that sometimes is literally invading our images at the beginning when they are still in the linear phase. Here is just showing the way the hyperbolic Arcosin works. You can get control with those two parameters down there, and you can see the histogram. It's a tool, it's not a complete software, despite I will add some more features in the future. Let's start to talk about photo editing software. The GIMP is definitely the most complete one, but it has a big drawback. It's still working at the moment at 8-bit per color channel. This can sound a little bit too few for our dynamic range images, but you have to think that when you arrive at this stage, you already stretched your image. So you're not going to lose that much that could be visible when you are going at this stage with the GIMP. The other good news, it is working with layer masks, so you can actually select the area where you want to act, and you can also select the background or the stars and do whatever you want with them. You've got levels, curving, everything from that a typical professional editing software has got. A nice alternative written in the Java language is ImageJ, which is also used by scientific community, especially biological community, which has produced a lot of filters that can be used for astronomy as well. The user interface is not definitely very nice, but it's workable. You can work also with some astronomy-related filters that have been designed for the ImageJ. It's an open source, so you can participate as well and contribute. I think this is the last one of the software that I thought about. It's pin.net, which has been, it's a freeware and has been designed by a team of workers for Microsoft that just moved away from Microsoft or still working from Microsoft, but because Microsoft left away this project, they just kept it in the developed it themselves. It's pretty similar to GIMP, and probably the user interface is more similar to what Microsoft has used to us in this period. Sometimes it's not very stable. I've seen it sometimes it's crashing, but it works with 16-bit already for per color channel, so this could be a nice plus. So, what software to use of the name of them? Well, there is not actually a clear answer. You need to consider yourself what is good for you or not. I just put this table just to let you understand that there is no such program that do all the phases. You see, the columns are all the phases that we considered before, the type of license and the name. So basically, you need to choose and pick up the right one that you feel they match your kind of workflow you have. Considering that from a user experience point of view, it's the software that should adapt itself to the need of the user and not the vice versa. Basically, I would like to show you now an example of workflow that I did picking up some of the software that I showed you before. This is an image that I took in Namibia with my Takashi FSQ85ED and a 450 Canon modified. The image is a wide field of the cat pose. So I started with Iris, and I converted the Canon RAW to the color filter array file format, which is the one is used inside by Iris in order to calibrate the images. Then I created the master bias. I do the master dark. You see, some of the user interface is available, but some of the commands, then you need to use the command line as I told you before. And the master flat. After that, I use the calibration window, and I start to calibrate my raw frames, which are still raw as a color filter array. I move into the color domain, and so I debuyer, as we say normally, the image, and you see a very nice green image of the night sky, which is not very pleasant in my opinion. So let's go to register at first the image together with the image registration tool. Then I stretch again, and it's starting to show something. I then normalize the image. For normalization in this case, it means that taking the average of every frame and make sure that the average is the same for every frame for a better stacking later The image stack is the place where I live, I iris, and I go to pick tools, as I said before. The one stack algorithm that I implemented is the sigma clip algorithm. Of course, the parameters depending on your image. I use normally 2.5 as sigma and 3 iterations. And then I let it run, and I create a 32-bit per color channel image file. At that point, always with pick tools, I execute a hyperbolic Arcosin stretch, and so you start to see some features in the image itself. I remove the excess grain from the image, and then I move into GIMP. So, this is I think it's 100% magnification of the image, and you probably can see there is some noise. This is pattern noise, because I'm a silly guy. When I was in Namibia, I didn't know there was something called dithering that could help in reducing the pattern noise. But this is not a big problem. I will show you later why. In this phase, I just offset the background level, and I go then at the denoise phase. For using the denoise, there is a very nice filter which is called bilateral filtering, which eliminates or reduces strongly the effect of the pattern noise in DSLR images, and sometimes it's used also for CCD images as well. So you can see before and after the noise reduction. After the noise of the background level, most of the time you need to offset again, because you can actually average the background, and averaging the background you get rid of some of the lower level pixels that you don't need anymore. And as a last thing, I decided to reduce a little bit the star size, and what I did is that creating a layer mask and selecting all just the stars, or a little bit portions of the stars, and then I can reduce the star size. You see before and after. I think it's pretty visible, the difference. And usually, sometimes this is one of the last things I do normally for the image processing. This was the final image. Actually, someone could argue about the color of the H-alpha emission here. I could even work a little bit more about color balancing with selecting the portion of the nebula, of course, and creating a red that is of your liking. Nice, of course, to see with the stretch the dark clouds and everything. So the signal to noise ratio is, I think, it's out of question in this case. I just briefly mention about this because, of course, we use them. The convolution and wavelets for contrast enhancements are available for Iris with a Richardson-Lucy algorithm, and for Fitz work as well. As far as mosaic and geometrical distortion, definitely Iris is one of the best. I've done some wide field images of the Milky Way when I was in Namibia, and merged them together, and I used the kind of projection that puts the Milky Way straight instead of having it curved with Iris, and with excellent results. This is the list of the software where you can download it. And I asked to the programmers of some of the software I mentioned before what were the further enhancements for those programs. Well, pick tools, I will definitely make the digital development processing available. I will produce a better histogram for better controlling the levels, and I will put Fitz compatibility for a more larger compatibility with other image processing software. For Regime, we got batch file conversion, a better batch file conversion for Fitz to TIFF investors. We got support for newer DSLR cameras, probably the DC-RAW, and a photometry module. For ImageJ, they were going to produce bilateral filtering as well, and a better 16-bit per channel support. They already support, but it's not complete for all the filters. What about GIMP? This year it will be the year where GIMP will switch to 16-bit per channel, per color channel. So definitely GIMP is going to be a keeper for freeware image processing. As far as there is concerned, Misha Skirmer has kindly told me that he's going to improve the debayering algorithm for DSLR images, mixing broadband and narrowband images tools, and an automated reduction of the data sets. One thing I want to add is that the example I did was with the Canon DSLR, but the same thing applies for CCD as well. It's exactly the same, apart from, of course, the bits and pieces precisely of the DSLR, of course, of one-shot colors images in general. So if you want, you can contact me this email, and of course I'm very welcome any question in the now and in the future. So the software is all there, you just go and get it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola, for a very concise review of all the freewares. Most of them I didn't know. Is there any question? Yes, David.
Yeah, I have a comment, Nicola. The H2 regions you used as your example are in the plane of the Milky Way, as you see 3.
Yeah, the cat pose.
Cap.
Yeah.
They're in the plane of the Milky Way. And although from the scientific point of view they're normal H2 regions, from the photographic point of view they're behind a lot of dust.
Yes.
So H alpha comes through, but H beta, which is in the blue part of the spectrum, is there, but it's completely absorbed by the dust.
Absolutely.
So these are going to be seriously red-looking H2 regions, which you have, compared to, for example, the Carina Nebula you have there, which is not behind much dust. It has this pink kind of colour.
Exactly.
So if you're using those two H2 regions as an example of a typical H2 region, they're not.
Sure.
That's what I was saying.
Sure. Physically, they are in a different position, in a different, let's say, environmental conditions.
A different spectrum.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What I try normally to do is to use the G2V method in order to color balance. But then at the end, when I am in the editing phase, sometimes I just shift slightly from the, let's say, the right path to my liking, of course.
Mariana.
I had a question. Does GIMP meanwhile have a ZMYK separation?
Pardon?
Does GIMP have a ZMYK separation?
Channel color channel separation.
Yes.
Yes, it does.
It does.
You showed the huge enhancements of the three softwares. The question is, are you satisfied with the whole workflow? So would you say that today it's possible to get a complete professional satisfied workflow with free software, or are there still some deficits compared to the professional the software you have to buy?
Right. The difference is between being lazy and using a full commercial that has most of the things, or 99% of the features that you need, or just try to dig out in the internet what you need and take the bits and pieces and collect them together in order to have something free of charge, so you can, as I said at the beginning of the presentation, something available more, some money that you can save for other things that of course you can't save the money for. And as far as the processing is concerned, I believe that you can do everything you can do with the commercial software. It just is a little bit more complicated because you need to study each single program, see what you need and the way you need to accomplish. With commercial software, you just need to study one software and that's it. With many software, you need to study many software and see what it fits for your needs. Definitely.
Is there any wish list of functions, or you're missing nothing?
As far as I understand, I don't miss much. I don't miss much because For instance, let's consider a stretch, image stretching. I stretched with pick tools. I thought that pick tools had to have the hyperbolic arccosine stretch. And it's my opinion, the hyperbolic arccosine is the only stretch that one should use. It's because it's the only one that preserves color stars, the real color of the stars. For instance, digital development process doesn't do that. But of course it can be used. So, yes.
16-bit in GIMP would be nice.
Yes, very nice.
Will
Absolutely.
be
Will be?
1 year. Well, they say half a year. It will be a year.
Yes, I think June, July, they said.
Don't believe it. They are behind schedule for the last 3 years. After Google Summer of Code, maybe.
I'll try to be optimistic then. Sure.
If I understand you well, you say if you have to buy one commercial set, you only need one.
Yeah.
And now my question is, which one?
Well, I'm here to talk about freeware. I don't, do they exist?
I'm just curious. This is an excellent presentation. No problem. But
you had an evaluation table, so what would be your result from that table, for example?
What would you think I would use?
yes?
Well, I would still, as commercial, there are so many interesting ones. The one that Vincent Paris is showing upstairs is a very good one. Max Indian is a very good one. I know of another one very good but not very common, which I don't remember the name. There is the software that is distributed with the book of astronomical image processing, which is nice as well.
Now you mentioned so many programs, and that's exactly my problem.
Yeah, of course. As I said before, there is not the one that you have to use, but the one that after you look at many, and you find the one that the user interface, the easy way that makes you easy the performing a certain task, that is the one that you have to use.
I'm afraid that there is no one.
Then you are very picky.
Possibly.
Yeah, please.
It's great. Okay, so I just wanted to add to that there's probably, I'm not sure if it's completely free or not, but I think it's free. The FITS Liberator is the program for hyperbolical stretches. It's what I use sometimes.
Right. The reason I didn't mention it, sure, the reason I didn't mention it is because at first FITS Liberator was just a plugin for Photoshop. But now I know it's a standalone one.
And it's more for the FITS output from CCD cameras, and you are mostly the DSLR guy. So
yes.
Big tools would work great, I guess, from Iris to.
I definitely prefer P2s than FITS Liberator, yes, because I think the features in FITS Liberator are very reduced as far also stretching is concerned.
And I'm using also only the hyperbolical stretch, so you got it too. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for me and working for Adobe, it's this part of Photoshop and Lightroom. So very interesting because I'm sometimes in the structure of developing and giving some ideas what they can do. So for me it was very upset. Adobe developed with CS5 the 32-bit workflow, and you can put a 32-bit file into Photoshop again about and with the raw tool, the ACR. And now the developing is, for me, is a little bit upset, is that with CS6, the integration with 32-bit is closed with Photoshop, but open with Lightroom. So with Lightroom, and that's interesting for also us photographers, if you have finished a file and save it as FITS or a TIFF file, 32-bit, and then re-import it into Lightroom, there you get a 32-bit environment to process it, and that's, you get 10 exposure steps for the contrast, what is now possible. Sure. And that was usually able with Photoshop, and it was perfect, and then they closed it. So the question to the guys in California, no answer. Why you do? we have done this, no feedback. So I know GIMP and other things where you can work with the solution is Adobe develops a lot of creative ideas, and that's the way. It's not always the best way, or always to use Photoshop for all. So that's definitely not the best way. But some of the function used to show in some one style, maybe of the maximum function registration imaging inside Photoshop, and then the start trails to get one maximum function and all of it. And nice solutions for one environment to work with DSLRs, especially now DSLRs.
Sure, absolutely. That is a field where open source developers can bring some new ideas. Absolutely.
And in the end, Adobe buy them. This is our way.
You know, compared to all the customers, they have a very small minority would use CCD cameras to import, you know, such high bitrate images. Most DSLRs are 12 bits, some medium format are 14 and 16, but not higher.
No, but the way is interesting with the 32 bits from developing. Maybe I can show this tomorrow, but it's a huge dynamic range which exists. Darren will show me, and she said, okay, with CCD stack, use always 32 bits. And he showed me, I believed, and then I tried the same with Photoshop and it works. So it's really another dynamic range, but now possible. Especially with the data, it's a little horrible from the file size.
Okay, so thank you. It's a great time, I think, and then to the deeper space, so it won't continue.
Coffee break first. 5 with.
Yes.
Yes.
Is it also in Photoshop? The bilateral filters, it's not all bilateral filters, but there is, it goes that surface something.
That's the one.
And you spread its light over a square degree of sky. And then you measure the surface brightness of some patch.
Die Farbeinheit in die Ecken eigentlich wirklich so wichtig und nicht nur einfach von der Ästhetik, dass das wirklich perfekt ist?
Das ist schwierig, weil Ästhetik ist natürlich immer so ein Thema.
Weil der Flatner ist ja im Grunde nur dazu da, dass weil das Foto einfach nicht die Biegung kriegt.
Ja, genau.
was Besseres rauskommt als perfekt und dann nicht bezahlt.
Immer so ein bisschen vom persönlichen Geschmack von der Kamera und dann das Ganze richtig vom Geldbeutel her ab. Was man da einfach
Wenn dann möchte ich sozusagen auf ein Ding und sprichbar perfekt irgendwas dazu kaufen und das dann nachkaufen, weil das nicht geht oder so. Deshalb frage ich auch so detailliert, da komme ich geldmäßig nicht hin. Weil die auch Mindestpension und so.
Ja.
Dan moet je afblijven op de stadmanager. If you don't ja.
Ich glaube, ich gehe weiter.